Hello and welcome to the Greater Grays Harbor Virtual Business Forum featuring the candidates for Aberdeen City Council. We'll begin here shortly. Just check your audio to make sure you're connected and you're in a good place to listen. And we'll be back to join you here in just a moment. All right, well, welcome. Good to see people rolling into the room. Just as a side note, this meeting is being recorded. But again, welcome on this Tuesday afternoon to the Virtual Business Forum featuring the candidates for Aberdeen City Council. We have several races represented here today. Unfortunately, not all candidates could attend. And we're sorry that they're not here, but we certainly appreciate the folks that could be here today and that have made the time available. I want to give a quick overview of the format of this event. All candidates will receive the opportunity to introduce themselves and hopefully address any of their thoughts or positions or standings on business and the economy. That is the focus of this forum. It's by the business community for the business community. So that's what we want to focus on. And then once we get through introductions, I'll move through questions for each race, where the first respondent will be allowed 2 minutes. Their opposing candidate will be allowed 2 minutes, again, on the same question. And then the first responder would be allowed 1 minute to rebut. In the case where an opponent is not, where only one candidate represents a race, that candidate will get 3 minutes to respond, and they will not rebut themselves. That would be silly. So that will be the format. And then, given that we do have more time than to get through all those questions, we are opening the Q&A to the audience. So the Q&A is open. You can drop a question in there, and it may be, you can drop it in now or later. It may be answered through the natural course of the program. If it's not, we'll see if we have enough time and plug it in. We also have some general questions for the candidates as well. Please note that your question is seen by the administrators of this event and the panelists, but it may not be seen by the public until it is answered. We know there's a lot of common questions out there. So I am going to go ahead and get started. Before I start, you might notice that Kyle Polly is sitting over there on screen as well. And this would be a good time to thank our media partners at Alpha Media, Jodesha Broadcasting, and the Daily World. They have been our promotional partners and helped us develop the questions and the thoughts behind this program. So thank you to our partners on all of this. It made it really enjoyable to work with you all. So we'll go ahead and get started. The candidates will be asked to introduce themselves and address their positions related to business and the economy. They each have 1 minute, and we will start with candidate Croft. When you start speaking, I start the clock.
Okay. Hi there. I'm Antara Croft, and I'm running for the Aberdeen City Council in Ward 4. And I stand for God, country, our flag, and I stand for Aberdeen. And after knocking on about 200 doors and speaking with constituents, I found that homelessness and the needle giveaway are the two biggest concerns on people's minds. So that is what I'm concerned about. And we need a great business environment to bring in a better economy here in Aberdeen area in the Grays Harbor. And I think cleaning up the homelessness, I mean, with compassion and common sense And eliminating this needle program will help to create a better business environment. And that includes what we're teaching the children in school too. It includes everything, and we need everybody to start getting more involved. And I just want to make Aberdeen more appealing, and I want to reclaim our prosperity. We have had it before. We can get it again with good legislation and good common sense. And
Thank
I want
you,
Aberdeen to
Candidate
be,
Croft. The time has expired.
okay, I want Aberdeen to be a shining city on the bay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now moving on to candidate Pericini.
Okay. My name is Debbie Pericini, and I am running for Ward 5, Position 10 on the City Council. And my main reason for running is because I feel that we're dropping the ball in Aberdeen. We have so much potential, and our biggest business is the medical. The hospital is our biggest employer. And then the next business is government. This is not the way you run a productive society. We need to figure out ways to bring in new business, larger businesses that employ more people, and not just at minimum wage jobs. We do have some substantial jobs in our area, but it's not like the industry that we used to have. You know, everyone that lived through the recession and the spotted owl knows that we used to have a huge economy. We need to find a different avenue to bring that in. And I don't want it to be the drug complex. I don't want it to be that we're living off of grants from month to month to month and from year to year. I would like to find different ways to attract other business.
Thank you.
Clean up our
That is
community.
time on your
Okay.
introduction. Thank you. All right, candidate Richrod, you have the floor. I'll start the timer when you start speaking.
Hi, I'm Alan Richard. I'm currently in position 10 for Ward 5, which is the downtown. I too am, my agenda is economic development in Aberdeen, and we're in the 21st century, so we're going to have to focus on 21st century sustainable development, and it's happening all over the world, and it's starting to happen here. One of the problems that we have is that the entire downtown area is in a flood zone, and the flood insurance can be more than mortgage payments, and often is. That's being addressed now. We have $25 million already invested in the levee system, and the next phase is going to be happening later this year. And that's going to remove the requirement for flood insurance, which is one of the reasons that the downtown buildings are being bought up by Emerald International, as he knows that that's coming. So it's happening, and we'll talk about it later in more depth.
Thank you. And candidate Ellis, I'll start the timer when you start speaking.
Thank you. I'm Liz Ellis. I was appointed to represent Ward 3, Position 5 in September of last year. I live east of Sam Bend Park, and I'm also active in the Kurt Cobain neighborhood, managing affordable rentals, a home repair business, and launching a community garden. In 2025, I was awarded a startup business grant. I've hired local youth and invested in Aberdeen. I know what it's like to pay staff and file quarterly taxes. I also know how important it is to have a vision and to guide progress. I serve on the Public Works Committee, where I advocate for new sidewalks and major street repairs. The committee's been looking at how to improve traffic flow, safe routes to school, plan for more frequent flood events, and keep roads and bridges safe and serviceable into the future.
Thank you. Right under the buzzer. All right, and our final candidate introduction, candidate Klein.
Thank you, Ms. Buffington. I'm Norman Klein. I moved here from Arizona in 2019. My wife is a home care hospice nurse in Grays Harbor. So I have definitely a strong pro-nursing healthcare slant with my wife, Christine. I am a retired corrections lieutenant with the Bureau of Prisons, 27 years with them plus. And I've worked in law enforcement before that. I work in law enforcement now on a part-time basis with Grays Harbor Sheriff in the Montesano Courthouse for security. So I feel like I'm pretty plugged into our community since 2019. Even though I didn't grow up here, I was born in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and my mom owned a small business, a delicatessen. So I totally get pro-business. That's what I want to see. I agree with the other candidates that had similar sentiments. Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate the introductions. And so we're now going into questions for each race. The first race we'll address is, it looks like the first, excuse me, not the first race. Yeah. The first candidate we'll address is candidate Perricini. So she will have 2 minutes to answer the question. Candidate Rich Rod will have 2 minutes to answer the same question. And then candidate Perricini will have 1 minute to respond to that. So the first question is, there are numerous vacant buildings in Aberdeen, many of which have been empty for some time and are privately held. Please share your thoughts on how to motivate property owners to invest in improvements and tenant recruitment. So candidate Perricini, you have 2 minutes
Okay.
to respond to that. When you start speaking, I will start the clock.
Okay, I do believe that these vacant buildings that are being left to rot, we need to create an ordinance that says you have a certain amount of time to improve your building, make it livable, or demolish. There's way too many. Some of them are filled with cockroaches, and if they can't do that, then the city would have to take over. The way it is right now, when I tried to open my business, I wanted to go downtown, but the buildings that I looked at were not habitable at that point. So I had to find another building that was not close to downtown, and there's no parking. That's a real difficult thing for, a very busy hair salon. I do think that, if you place an ordinance and you give people rules and then you enforce them, eventually they're going to either clean it up or sell it to somebody who will. And that's about all I can think of.
Thank you. And you certainly don't have to use all the time. All right, candidate Rich Rod, when you start speaking, I will start the clock.
Well, as I said, the biggest impediment right now is the flood insurance problem that's being addressed. And Debbie Ann is right. There are a lot of vacant buildings, and the landlords, the owners of the buildings, may be out of town. And the process that she talks about can take several years. A good example was the old brick building that just came down on Market, or on Heron Street, the old Pioneer Paper building. That process took about 2 years, and because it's private property, and foreclosing on private property and to take it down is a very long and difficult process. The buildings that people have in the flood zone, there's no incentive financially to rehab those buildings because it would be too expensive, and the buildings aren't even worth it. Well, we'll get rid of the flood insurance requirement. That will turn around, and it's starting to turn around. We've already got a new map, and we've got guarantees that requirement is going to go away. And there's also we now have, through the Downtown Association, there's people working on finding businesses to fill the downtown store spaces and stuff. I'd always said, why did we build that mall in Southside that shouldn't have been built there in the first place? Why don't we make the downtown the walkable mall? That's actually starting to happen, and the businesses down there that have moved in are really happy. And some of them were, like Debbie Ann's business, didn't actually find a place that they were looking for, but we've got quite a few, and it's growing.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, candidate Perricini, you have 1 minute to respond. Let me get my whenever you start speaking, I will start the timer.
Okay, the funds for the Heron Street building, the reason why it took so long to tear that down was because that money was used to pay for the riverfront property and the Michigan property. That stopped the removal in progress. So that could have been done much sooner, but it wasn't. And what a sad thing to say that it was that the South Shore Mall should have never been built. There were 20 some businesses that suffered because that was condemned. And not all of them have been relocated because they can't afford to. So to make such a nonchalant statement is really hurtful to all the businesses that suffered, including my own business. But Greater Grays Harbor did help us, and we really appreciated that. But I think that's about it.
Thank you. All right, this next question will start with candidate Ellis and be responded to by candidate Klein. Let me get my clock going here. All right, the question is, the city, no way.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You broke up.
We had a power surge or something just now. Did you hear me yell no way? Okay.
I did.
I'm glad I watched my language. Okay. So I'll start over. The city received approximately $23 million following the fire at the city-owned Armory building. The current council has approved a portion of these funds to projects including the Gateway Center and the North Shore Levee project. How do you believe these funds should be used? And
What's your next?
Candidate
I'm
Ellis,
sorry.
I'll start when you start speaking.
Okay, thank you. That's an excellent question. Yes, the $23 million that we got from the museum insurance, some of it went to reimburse museum expenses. Some of it went to pay for the restoration of items and to as replacement value for items. But there was quite a bit of money left. And without a firm plan for here's what the museum board would like to see happen next, I was not inclined to support. There was no plan to support. So what we had to vote on first was the Gateway Center project that came up. And I saw that as having the potential to house certainly a significant part of the museum collection. I think it would be a real draw for the public and tourists coming through. And the Gateway building had a lot of traction from years and years of process and millions of dollars of outside invested money. So I was thinking that might be a win-win. we also had the request to support the levy, which is Mr. Rich Rod has said is really vital to downtown development. And so I did vote for the $7 million to be put to that.
Thank you. The same question goes to candidate Klein. And let me set my clock here, please. All right,
Thank you.
candidate, go ahead.
Yes, I also have been monitoring the Gateway Center debate with the council and the community. And I am at this point not for the Gateway Center as it sits. And I know it has been in the works for many years. I heard the information from the gentleman that is doing the studies on it, engineering, and we have committed $5 to $7 million already. The city voted on that. So I don't know if that's something we can turn around if there's a change in the council next year. But regardless, I'm not for it as it sits. I feel there's better use of that money for other projects. The North Shore levy project, I'm 100% for that. I mean, until you get that in order, you're not going to get downtown in order, just like Alan already stated. And I agree with him 100% on that. I don't think there's a big argument with the council about the levy. I think whoever goes into the council is pro levy because it just makes sense to help people that are in the community that are paying expensive insurance on commercial and on residential. My son lives in Hoquiam in the floodplain on Aberdeen Avenue. So I am 100% aware of how expensive it is, and it's got to be worse for commercial. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at here with a short format. I'm not for the Gateway Center. I think there's a lot of other worthy projects that could use that money, and we'll see what happens going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, candidate Ellis, you will have a minute to respond to candidate Klein. You're muted.
That helps. The $7 million that's been set aside for the Gateway Center is there, but actually spending it will require a follow-up vote. And we've hired a project manager person to put together a capital plan that would prove to us that it will pay for itself. Now, if I don't see that, I'm not going to vote for it. So that's the one thing. We've got about $3 million of unallocated money, and I do support a museum, and I'm hoping that the museum board comes back to us with a solid proposal for what they would like to see that would help further getting a museum back into our community.
Thank you. All right, I appreciate you both and your thoughtful responses to that question. The next question will go to candidate Croft, and due to the fact that candidate Croft's opponent is not present, she will have 3 minutes to answer the question directed to her. So candidate Croft, go ahead and get ready while I change the timer. And the question to you, candidate Croft, is, I just want to make sure are you there? Did we lose her? Does anybody see, Kyle, do you see her in there?
I do not, but just a update for people. I just got a photo of a truck hit a power pole on the Port Industrial Road and it knocked out power in that area. So I'm not sure where she's located, but that could have some of the issues to do with that.
And
My internet is disconnected, and so I had to go on my cell phone and then reconnect. So maybe that's what happened to her.
All right, so for the public, just what you're probably hearing is our power might be not stable in some parts of the community due to that accident. So if we disappear like we did for that moment, and I had my colorful outburst, please know that's what's going on. So thinking on my feet here, I'm going to move right to, let's see, I'll go to candidate Richrod. It will start with you on this question. And you'll have 2 minutes to respond. So hold on a second here. All right, your question, candidate Richrod, and of course, candidate Perricini, you'll have 2 minutes to respond. Attracting a competitive workforce and their employers require that our community has the housing to support them. It is well known and lamented that our housing inventory is limited. What can be done to spur new housing developments within the city? And candidate Richrod, I'll start when you start speaking.
The housing market right now is nuts. I had a realtor tell me that if they have a listing, they have a sale, and houses are going for twice their assessed value and even more, which drives the tax burden and the cost of housing up. And so what we have to be able to do is make way for certainly lower cost housing and affordable housing. And that's a long process, but we can do that. And there are plans in the works for low income housing, but to make housing available for local workforce, we have to, excuse me, we're going to have to do what we can to stabilize the market at lower prices. Now, the city council doesn't have a lot of power to do that, but attracting, this is something that we're going to have to plan for through the comprehensive plan. Is we're going to have to plan for housing, we're going to have to plan for business property, we're going to have to plan for parking, we're going to have to plan for expanded and more efficient streets and throughways, and some of that is happening. But we're going to it's all part of the comprehensive plan, which is not. I don't have enough time to go into all of that. It's a very long and involved process, but housing is just one piece of the puzzle, and you can't just pass an ordinance saying, well, housing prices must decrease by 50%. It's just, we can't do that. But we're going to have to attract the high wage businesses to help pay for some of that. And this is really a golden opportunity here in Aberdeen. Because we don't have the sawmills that we used to have, so we can go with this.
Thank you. And candidate Perricini, the same question to you, and I'll start the
I
timer.
actually didn't hear the question.
Okay,
At all.
all right, I'll repeat it.
For some reason, I
You may be struggling with some of your connectivity, I understand.
think so, yeah.
The question is, attracting a competitive workforce and their employers requires that our community has the housing to support them. It is well known and lamented that our housing inventory is limited. What can be done to spur new housing developments within the city? Whenever you're ready.
Okay. First of all, the city is not in the housing business. We don't do rentals. That's not our job. That's for investors. So we have to lure in investors, which you have to clean up your city to do that. You know, fortunately, we do have some investors that are spending a lot of money buying buildings and stuff downtown, but there are not enough houses. A lot of the low income housing is being funded for low income people, like the HIN project. So what that does is that pushes up the cost of housing, because they know that the government's going to guarantee that, you know, Joe only has to pay $20, but the government's going to pay $900. So whether the apartment's worth $900 or not, it increases it. And so the rents go up. Some of that needs to be remedied. I don't know how we would do that, But I don't have the ins on that. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that at this point, we do need to lure people in. It's not the city's job to do the building, though. It's not the city's job to do the renting. I'm not quite sure how we would go about.
Another example of depending on the social service programs.
I think that's about all I can say.
Thank you. Okay. So candidate Richrod, you have a minute to respond to this. When you start speaking, I will start the timer. Did I lose him as well? He's there.
He's muted.
All right. I'll unmute. You need to unmute. There you
There we
go.
go.
Go
All
ahead.
right, I had to hit it like 3 times. The city is not in the housing business, that's correct. But one thing I can tell you is that there is a lot, in fact, I'm sitting here looking directly at a house being redone. There's the building permits for renovation and new siding and new windows and new roofs and all that sort of thing. We've sold almost as many building permits so far this year as we have in a boom year for the entire year. And the housing is being houses are being renovated. There's new houses going up. That is, as candidate Pericini said, it's not the city's business to build those. That's market driven. And the question is a little hard to answer for those reasons. But we're gonna have to work on bringing more people in.
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate everybody's flexibility. Candidate Croft, are you back in the room? Do you have connectivity? You look
Okay,
like,
yeah, I'm halfway on my phone and
all right, you just muted yourself. If you could unmute, we will bring a question back to you. There you go. You look unmuted. And so you will have 3 minutes. Okay. On the topic of workforce development, since Aberdeen has one of our area's greatest economic tools, Grays Harbor College, what can be done to encourage local students to remain or return to the area once they have completed schooling or training?
okay. Well, thank goodness we have the college. That is a really valuable asset. And I think they can do a lot of great programs getting more students involved, and maybe before they even leave or go away to other colleges, that they could get involved with work programs, including vocational. Vocational programs would be excellent for anybody graduating. I have had a constituent say that he told his daughter after she went away to college to never come back to Aberdeen because it's dead. And so, yeah, we need to have incentives for people to come back, so they need jobs. So, yeah, I know it's just a vicious cycle that we need to keep people in the loop, and everybody really needs to get more involved to help create the environment for more businesses to come to Aberdeen. And I think working with the college is a great way to do it with work programs and learning work skills, maybe for those that don't leave. So vocations are really needed. Like, I mean, we need plumbers and welders and carpenters and, you know, people for services like that, and they can make good money at that. So I think working with the college would be a great way for students to get involved both before they graduate and after.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we're glad. Were you done? You still had time. I don't want to cut you off.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for being able to rejoin. We all had a little bit of a hiccup there. All right. So there is not a rebuttal for candidate Croft. So we will move into the next candidate and we'll open with candidate Klein. And candidate Klein, you will have 2 minutes to answer this question, with candidate Ellis responding for 2 minutes, and of course a rebuttal of 1 minute. The question is, what specifically do you plan to do to entice new business and employers to Aberdeen? Candidate Klein.
Well, I think creating a welcoming environment, being pro-business, trying to lower the bar on some regulations, zoning requirements that the city could have impact on. I know that, like others have said, that the city council is not all powerful, but if we can direct the planning department, the zoning department, and give them some guidance to help contractors and also people that are remodeling their home that have to pay the fees to the city to replace windows, which I can ask me how I know, that you're slowing the process down or making it more difficult for the average citizen here in town. So that would be helpful for, I think, businesses if we don't create a higher bar or make it very difficult with a lot of paperwork. If everything's been taken care of and the contractor is licensed and it's been reviewed, let's move forward. I don't have a magic wand for that. Like other people have said, it's kind of a holistic process to get businesses to come to an area that doesn't have a big footprint, and trying to draw people from Olympia out here is a hard sell. Yeah, we're a tourist oriented, go to the beach community, and to add to that would be great. And if we can do that, I know we're popular and our real estate is expensive here because of people from Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia moving out here for quote unquote affordable housing. So I'm definitely sympathetic to the college, and I would like to see those programs push through. I'm not against any of the things that have been brought up. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Ellis, 2 minutes when you start speaking on the same question.
Well, I think this is a great question, and it gets back to housing. City is a pretty major employer, and right now we're looking to hire a new city engineer and a new city attorney. Those people are going to need to find housing, and so encouraging more housing to be developed through the comprehensive plan process, through revising the zoning code, I think are critical steps. There are a number of businesses and not-for-profits that have come here and continue to move here. Businesses that are home-based. With COVID, we got a lot of people moving out of the big cities, and they operate from home. And I think Aberdeen is already a very welcoming place. The permit staff is super helpful, and those permitting costs do add to the project cost, but compared to other cities, they are quite reasonable and help pay for staff time. We can do more, I think, and I know Greater Grace Harbor Inc. does more, and the Downtown Association does a lot with putting out the red carpet, making visitors feel really welcome, and letting them know what properties are available for purchase or rent, and helping to make connections and facilitate a business to get get started here.
Thank you. All right, candidate Klein, you will get 1 minute to respond. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Yeah, again, I think all of us are on the same kind of track here. We want to attract businesses, even if they're work from home businesses where you need to have good internet, you got to have FiOS, whatever. If the infrastructure is in place, that's great. You know, we've had companies come out like overstock.com that were in the Sets Up Business Park. If we could have something like that in our area, and kind of develop you know, internet-based companies. I'm not looking to recreate the 1890s and have timber plants in mills. We know that's not the future, but I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater either. If those old technology companies still are relevant and they employ a lot of people, I am okay with it. I know the modern technology-based companies are always looking for land and buildings and infrastructure. I'm good with that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our last targeted question will go to candidate Croft, and she'll have 3 minutes to answer this question. After that, we will go into questions that everybody can respond to. So candidate Croft, go ahead and unmute yourself. And your question is, again, on the topic of business, what do you feel are the issues that are inhibiting business growth and expansion in the city of Aberdeen?
Okay, well, number one, as we've said, it's homelessness, the drug problem, and crime. Crime is a big issue, and Aberdeen is one of the highest crime rate cities that there is, and we don't hear about it much, but we're like property crime. Let me see, there's 4,089 incidents per 100,000 people. So property crime is the biggest. Luckily, violent crime is not as bad. It's 427 incidents per 100,000. But along with crime is because of the drugs. And so we need to get rid of that needle program. We don't need this expansion of homelessness and more drugs and more crime. So that inhibits the growth. And I spoke to a number of people that are moving out of the area because of these changes. One is a neighbor, because of the way things have changed, that they're not pleased at all with what's going on. And people want to see the homeless off the streets and in work programs. So the biggest issues for business growth is creating a good environment where people are prospering. If we don't have to fight off bad legislation, we can focus on more positive things. Like we have this beautiful bay that we could have more parks on, and cafes and restaurants. We could have marinas. I mean, we're on the water. We should have marinas. And there's other places like the Kitsap Peninsula where kids are even from high school, they have sailing classes and sailing races. I mean, our kids could be more involved with this. That's a really valuable asset that we have, this beautiful bay. So I'd really like to see parks. And have we even thought of like a desalinization plant? I mean, here we are at the bottom of a rainforest, and how many rivers empty into the bay? We could be utilizing that as another asset that we have that we really need to work for and capitalize on. So I think what inhibits growth is coming into an area that does not look good when we have crime and homeless and drug problems. So we need to work together with the police, Chief Shumate, and help clean up this area and make it a thriving place that people want to live and grow and have happy families. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so all candidates have been able to initiate, be the first responder to a question. And so now we're moving on to questions that each candidate will answer the same question. So I'm just going to set, going to set my timer for 2 minutes. And I will start with candidate Richrod. And the question is, what are the top 3 things that make Aberdeen uniquely competitive against other communities of its size? And when I say uniquely competitive, I mean for economic growth. And so we will start with candidate Richrod.
There's more than 3, but to limit it to 3, one of them that's very powerful is the unique history and the historical the historical board from the state was here and visited and couldn't believe it. One of the people said, we couldn't believe that there were so many large buildings in a town this size with this much rich history. That's translating around the world. And not only that, but the music, of course, Kurt Cobain is still eminently marketable. And the close proximity to the wild rainforest and to, the boundless nature and all of that. And another thing that people are noticing from outside the area is that we have a lot of opportunity to develop 21st century sustainable small and medium industries. And what I'm talking about that is not these huge big corporations that come in from outside the area and hire a few hundred people and then leave and leave us to die. We're talking about locally developed, and we can springboard off of the tech industry. We can springboard off of the one of the other candidates was talking about the fact that we don't have the old growth timber. That's true, but the timber industry, the building products industry is morphing into new technologies using waste materials, and we have the infrastructure for that already. And there's plenty of room for industrial and economic growth here. Economic growth is just a key term for jobs and businesses, and we've got a clean slate here that we can use, and it's being appreciated from outside the area. We get a lot of input about that.
Thank you. The same question to candidate Perricini. Top 3 things that make Aberdeen uniquely competitive against other communities of its size, and the competitiveness is regarding economic growth.
We have the port of Grays Harbor, which gives us access to the world. We've had boats, from Japan, China, you name it, they can come into our port. And that's a huge, huge bonus to our community. We're also the center to 2 beaches and the Quinault Rainforest. What a luxury to be in the middle of all that and to be the access point to each of these great places. And our community is very lucky to have that. And I think that we can bring in more business if we can sell that atmosphere to them. I don't think it would be that hard. And we're also one of the best places for education. We now have access to a 4-year college in our small community. What a blessing. And our grade schools and our middle and high schools are some of the best. We have the best students, we have the best teachers. We have a lot to offer anyone moving into the harbor. That's why I stayed here, because I wanted my son to have a good education in a smaller community. And we do have the best. So I think those are three great things that Aberdeen has to offer the world. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Candidate Croft. Go ahead and unmute. And candidates, after you speak, if you don't mute yourself, I am muting you. So just so you're aware of that. Okay, candidate Croft, you look good. I'll go ahead and start when you start speaking.
Okay, yes, I agree. We have some great assets here, and I think the port is a great asset. The fact that we can bring in a lot of jobs that way, and we really need to utilize that more. And we have the dredging, and so that's a really valuable asset. And I think just waterfront properties, that has a lot of potential to be developed commercially, and also for recreation. And I think that would really enhance our environment here. And you know, like almost every great city has a park by the water, and so that would help people get more active and be healthy too if we had a big park that is really inviting. And then actually we also have our airport. I think our airport is really underutilized, and I think that could really be a great place to develop and have more activity that way, like flight lessons and just going on like air shows at the airport. And we should have a restaurant. Everybody wants a restaurant with a view. So I think we could really utilize that more. But I think Aberdeen does have a lot of great assets to offer, and focusing more on what we do have will help us to think of more ideas of how businesses would be attracted here. And I think looking at other cities that have been role models or twin cities of how they succeeded will help us to succeed too. So thank you.
Thank you. And just a quick note to the audience, you can certainly drop questions in the Q&A box. After we ask all these candidates this same question, we'll be checking that to see if there's questions that we can present to the candidates. So now it is candidate Klein to answer the same question about the top 3 things to make it that are uniquely competitive.
All right, thank you. Yeah, as the other candidates have said, I'm definitely, the thing that attracted me and my wife was just the harbor and its history. And it's a unique town. It's quirky, and I don't want to get rid of the quirkiness. I like it. You know, we're not a vanilla type town city like a lot of the modern big cities, and that is good. Being a deep water port on the Pacific coast where you don't have to go way inland like Portland or Olympia. I think we have some innate advantages for commerce with the Pacific trade, and I'd like to expand on that with the port people. Obviously, we have a natural beauty here because we are the gateway to the Olympics, and that's a magnet for people. They're going to come through our town one way or the other, whether they're going to Olympic National Park or they're going to Ocean Shores or Westport or wherever they may be going. I would like to see us maybe use the rivers more to our advantage, like San Antonio did with their river walk. I think that's a huge untapped potential. And I know it's been discussed by the zoning groups that I'm not the first one to bring that up, and I'm not claiming to. But I would definitely like to see a river walk and have the restaurants, bike paths. That tends to build on that success, and that people, it's a magnet. People will want to stop in our town, hang out, have a coffee, have a brew on their way to Olympic Park or Ocean Shores. I feel like we have the history here of our are immigrants from Norway, Sweden, all over the world that came here for a new life and brought their skills with them, whether it was carpentry, their work ethic. There's a lot of things, like you said. That's 3 is easy to pick. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and candidate Ellis, the last candidate to respond to this question.
Thank you. As all the other candidates have been speaking, I've been checking all these things off my list. So now I'm down to like the final 3 maybe. But on my list that haven't been mentioned are Aberdeen as part of the electric vehicle coastal highway. And of course, Tesla first started that. We now have a Electrify America station over at the Walmart parking lot. So that can help recharge all sorts of non-Tesla vehicles. We have low-cost utilities, which are especially valuable for a business. And the Grays Harbor PUD has been talking about bringing in transoceanic high-speed data cable, which might be added incentive for a major hub to be put here in the area. But I think we need to also talk about what types of businesses do we want here. For example, do we want trains running on the tracks 24 hours a day? Or do we want to have businesses that really enhance our community rather than, say, a ginormous Amazon type warehouse, which has a huge footprint and doesn't give back very much? So when there's more time, if we can talk about the types of businesses that would enhance Aberdeen, that would be lovely.
Thank you. All right, so we have gotten through the general questions, and there is one question presented by the audience. And I think the way I am going to frame it is I'm going to give everybody a minute, every candidate a minute to respond to this. And candidate Croft, did I ask you that? Did you get asked that question about the top 3? I'm making sure I hit everybody, and I don't see a check mark by your name. Okay, great. I'm checking them off as people speak. Thank you. So I'm going to edit the timer to give, it's a 1-minute response. And I will call out the first candidate here shortly. But the question is regarding education. And so when we think about our education ecosystem, could you please give your thoughts in 1 minute on how our current education ecosystem can continue to enhance our workforce development, or can expand or enhance itself to support our workforce development? It's a very general question. So if you had to put yourself kind of in a lane, it is really about our educational ecosystem and how it can support, promote, and grow our workforce to be competitive. And I will start with candidate Perricini. When you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. I think that it's very important to teach real life situations, how to pay bills, basic necessities. And I also think that we need to promote a lot of vocational training, and we can do a lot of that in high school. I know I took welding, I took cosmetology. There's carpentry programs. I think there are a lot of different programs that we can bring back into the community to encourage people to stay here so that they don't have to leave. Plus, we also have the 4-year college. So some of these kids that would normally have to go out of town to get their education degree, they can get that here now, and they can do their on-hands training in Aberdeen or in Hoquiam, or I think that we need to encourage that. And teach basic life skills so that when they get out there, they can pay their bills.
Thank you. Candidate Richrod, you are next.
All of that is certainly important. I remember learning a lot of that in school, that whether it's taught now or not, it doesn't seem to be as much. We can take a cue from some of the education systems in Europe and in Asia. For example, in Europe, skills training, masonry, metal craft, design skills, carpentry, all of that is just as important as getting PhDs and and master's degrees in law and business and all that other. And we can certainly focus on that as well as some of the professional skills, because somebody's got to build the building, somebody's got to do the roads and all of that kind of stuff, and plan how to build all of this stuff. And that's just as important for the development of not only this city, but the entire county, Southwest Washington. Oh, I hit the
Thank
mark.
you. Thank you. All right, candidate Ellis. I'll go ahead and let you answer the same question.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. So it's a really broad question. It's looking at our educational ecosystem and how it can enhance our workforce development, or what it might need to do to enhance.
Well, as a city council person, I want to know that we have good schools, but that's not my area of focus. As a resident of the city of Aberdeen, I certainly appreciate that the Aberdeen High School still offers courses in things like auto repair, kitchen and culinary skills. And our four-year college also has a daycare center where parents can find quality daycare. And that very early level of learning is important, both for the infants as well as giving mom or dad an opportunity to be able to get into work.
Thank you. Sorry, I was muted there. Candidate Klein.
Thank you. Again, piggybacking on what everyone else has kind of mentioned, I like the European style trade school / apprenticeships that channel people that are not maybe as scholastic as the next person, that want to work with their hands, that don't mind getting dirty. The plumbers and electricians and carpenters make a lot of money. So it's definitely not, oh, I'm going to get a McDonald's job. No, they're going to have something they can support a family on. I'd like to see the focus of the schools in that direction. Just a real world understanding of finances for the young people in high school, and how our monetary system works, the world system works, and setting a budget, and how taxes work. I don't think they do a good job with that like they used to in social sciences and home ec, like going back to the 70s. And yes, I'm dating myself, but I thought they did a better job back then than they do now. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll close with candidate Croft on the same question about how we can enhance our workforce development. When you're ready. You're muted. When you're ready.
Yes,
Go
I'm
ahead.
halfway on the phone.
I got you. Go ahead when you're
Okay.
ready.
All right, so our educational system, number one, we have to clear up this CRT business, because the critical race theory, because we want children being educated to value the United States. They have to respect our flag, and we want them to have pride in being Americans. We are innovative. And so if we start with a good sense of who we are and appreciating our history, it's excellent to build just a good work ethic. They need skills training, and high school students can do more like they used to, building sidewalks and getting more involved with the community. And we can always use high school students helping seniors to learn how to use the internet. And it would be great with more high school involvement with the community and programs such as that.
Thank you. I appreciate all candidates, acknowledge that they don't have direct governance over our school systems here, but referenced what, they believe is necessary to help us grow our workforce as they evaluate our economic recovery and growth. Okay, so we are getting close to your closing statements. You all are going to get 2 minutes to close. It is your call what you'd like to address. You've heard other candidates ask questions that you may want to address, or you just want to talk about why you're running and what's important to you. So it is a freestyle round, if you will. And I encourage you, because this is for the business community, to not lose sight of that theme as well. Okay, so I'm going to get my clock reset. Oh, geez. All right. And let me check my notes for who goes first to make sure what I put in order. Okay. Candidate Richrod, I will start with you when you are ready. Are you there? You're muted. And candidate Richrod, you are first for closing 2-minute statement.
There we go.
All right.
I want to focus on just, we've heard a lot of good ideas, but I want to focus just on the city. The city is kind of at the breaking point right at the moment. And by that, I mean that we are at, we have the staff that we have is kind of pushed to the edge, and we need a city attorney, we need a city engineer, and first and foremost, Aberdeen is a first-class city. There are several in the state. We need a good city administrator that can run the ship of government, if you will, and let the mayor do his job. And we're going to have to deal with that in this next budget cycle. And we're going to have to plan for the growth that is already happening. There's 1,000 people more in the city now than there were at the last survey. And I've talked to quite a few people in the Ward 5 area. About half of them have moved here from outside the area, and they like it here. And that was very encouraging. And so the city government is going to have to buck up and not reform itself, but it's going to have to do its job of putting the proper administration into place. And as far as the departments of government, we need better. We need more people with city development. I think there should be a vigorous marketing campaign for this area between the cities, Greater Grays Harbor, and the county and the port to make this the place of focus to go after these industries. So.
Oops, thank you very much. All right, candidate Paracchini, the same 2 minutes is available to you for your closing remarks.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank Greater Grays Harbor for giving us this opportunity to speak to our community. There aren't a lot of opportunities because of COVID, but this is perfect. And I would like to just promote our local economy and work on tax relief for people, the businesses. I'm a strong advocate for transparency within the government. So like me as a business owner should be able to go to different meetings with the city council. I would like to promote that so that businesses can come in and give us ideas on what we need to do to make their lives easier, to make it so that they can be more profitable within our community. I think that's pretty much my closing statement. I don't think I have to just continue to ramble because I do believe that I would be an asset for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to candidate Ellis, please.
Thank you very much, Lynette, and thanks again to Greater Grays Harbor Inc. for having this session this morning. More people are choosing to move here, yet housing is limited and housing costs are out of reach for many. We can encourage more housing when we revise the housing code in 2021. Code changes can make it easier to redevelop a number of downtown buildings into apartments. More people living downtown will build on our growing vitality and drive further economic development. Grays Harbor County has some of the highest rates of growing number of visible and invisible homeless people, high rates of chronic health conditions, unemployment, and poverty. Are there problems? Of course, but we aren't sinking, we aren't drowning. We have resources, know-how, and the muster, and the time is right to work together to create a community we can all be proud of. The city has so much going for us, from our beautiful location to talented and caring people who roll up our shirt sleeves to help others when there is a need. Property and business owners like myself are investing in repairs, new paint, and new jobs. Our city revenues forecast is 9% above 2020. More businesses are moving into downtown, and Aberdeen has a stream of over 1 million drivers that come through town each year, spend money, and more of them are deciding this is a community they want to call home. To meet these and other challenges, Aberdeen needs leadership and direction to make wise choices as we look at rewriting our comprehensive plan zoning codes and putting together a capital projects plan and the 2022 budget. I've been really busy this past year working on drafts, and I'd like to stay, and please vote for me in the fall. Thank you.
All right, candidate Klein, as you may predict, you are next.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the process. I'm, again, and by no means a good Zoomer, but I'm trying. I got into this political process first time just because I feel like if you're not part of the process, you're the problem, and you don't really have a right to complain if things are going off the rail, so to speak. I feel like I'm a down-to-earth, middle of the road person who has a lot of real world experience with law enforcement, with people in prisons, people that made bad choices, people that have some have rehabilitated themselves that had drug problems. So I'm not a doom and gloomer, but I'm also not an enabler. I feel like we need to work together with the safety net organizations that are here in Aberdeen and in Grays Harbor County to help the homeless get out of the state they are in. And if it's by choice, give them options. I am not against homelessness. I'm against people that squat in people's property, that leave trash, needles, all the detritus that you see around the harbor that I feel is being enabled I'd like to see a different viewpoint from the council on that. I want to see an interactive city council. I'm not a big fan of Zoom for people trying to come and talk to their elected officials and the mayor. I would like to see in-person meetings as soon as possible when COVID dies down, and I hope it does this fall and winter. I don't want to have this contentiousness with our mayor. I feel like the council gangs up on Mayor Pete sometimes. That's my opinion. And I'm a conciliator. I am going to try to work with my fellow council members to smooth that process out, and would like to get a chance to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Croft, you'll close out closing statements.
Okay,
There you
you're
go.
unmuted.
Yeah, you're good. Okay, I'm ready for you.
All right. So yes, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity, and I love the Chamber of Commerce, Greater Grays Harbor Chamber of Commerce, and I love the sense of a business mind coming to help to create a healthy community. And I think Aberdeen does have a lot of great potential, but I think we do need to work on the basics to create the type of environment that businesses want to come here. And again, cleaning up the homelessness, the drugs, and the crime. So we really need to work with our chief shoemate police department to make it a safer place for everybody. And we can't let people be getting away with stealing from stores and things like that. That has got to stop. So I think it would be great if we can model after successful cities, how they've developed, and take advantage of our assets that we have, all these great things that we mentioned, our port, our beautiful bay, our views, our affordability, and so many other things that we have here. I just want to stand up and for positive common sense changes to create an environment for Aberdeen to thrive. And I really want to say too, I appreciate those bloom ladies. We love the flowers. It's amazing work they do, and it does make Aberdeen and Hoquiam beautiful. I love that, and constituents I spoke to commented about that too. So we love the bloom ladies. It's amazing what they can do. So I came from, I work as a home health physical therapist. I'm an assistant, and I want to make our Aberdeen healthy as well.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates that came here today. I know we had our technical difficulties. I know that I'm going to go ahead and stop share so we can see all your bright, shiny faces. We had our technical difficulties, myself included, and you guys all found a way to navigate and stay engaged and participate. So I certainly appreciate that. Like you, candidate Klein, and many of you others, Zoom is getting stale. And so I hope someday to meet many of you, even those of you in the audience I haven't been able to meet in person. So we certainly appreciate you coming here today. Ballots will be dropping here next week, I believe. Is that, no, 2 weeks, Kyle, the 15th. So folks will get those in their mailboxes then and can start voting. Since we did talk about workforce so much, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that Greater Grays Harbor has an internship open. It is a paid internship. We would hope to partner with the college or our local school districts. It is an in-office job, but it is working directly with the business community and identifying the type of support they need. So we always say that if you get a job at an organization like ours, every handshake is an interview. So we really do encourage folks to engage with us. It is on our website under the jobs tab as well. So with that said, I don't see any more questions from the audience. So I'm going to give some people some time back in their day. and everybody a quick, I guess, a restroom break and a lunch break and all the things that you missed right now. So have a great afternoon. Thanks for participating in this and taking your time. And we look forward to chatting with you at another time. Thank you, Kyle and Alpha Media, Jodesha Broadcasting, and the Daily World for also helping make this happen. Have a great afternoon.
Yeah.
Thanks
Bye.
again.